Skull Servants, later changed to the WIGHT series of cards to match their original Japanese names, are a group of skeletal zombie-type monsters that all originated from a single monster that released all the way back in 2002's Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon. And that monster was Skull Servant, known in the Japanese as WIGHT. What does WIGHT mean? Well, it's an old English word that just means a spooky ghost, a supernatural being. Originally, this level 1 vanilla monster with 300 attack and 200 defense was considered one of the worst cards to ever be made. And let's be honest, with that stat line, they're not exactly wrong. It was so bad that players would try to personally challenge themselves by attempting to win with this monster in their decks. In fact, the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX video game, Spirit Callers, they would pay homage to this by adding a finisher bonus, where if you were able to deal the final blow with Skull Servant, you would achieve something known as the Skull Servant finish. Even the anime was in on the point and laugh at this card, as Chaz Princeton spotted this card in the Reject Well at Duel Academy. Which, if you didn't watch GX, was a well where people would take their absolute trash dog water cards and just throw them down the well because they didn't want anything to do with them. So, yeah. As well, in the old Toei Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie, some kids actually pull this card alongside a basic insect and a mushroom man. 3 notoriously terrible cards. Even the kids in the anime admit that, oh my god, I pull absolute trash here. Kinda sad, really. However, you can only dig down and bury something so deep in a grave of shame before it emerges on the other side of the world, reborn as something different. A meme. Yes, with the ironic love for this card being just an awful card, but a charming one at that, it was enough to receive a fan base, where the head of development at Konami US appeared to have taken notice to the cult-like status. So what did he do? Well, he mentioned it to Konami, and I can only assume this is how the pitch went.
So, any new ideas for some cards?
Skull Servant, right? One of the weakest cards ever. I think it'd be funny if we made new support and we made it the strongest monster ever.
I love it. It's brilliant.
And so, in walks the new support, King of the Skull Servants, who, as of today, can get its attack to a whopping 23,000 with just its own effect. But how can you do that, I hear you cry? Well, the original flavor text of Skull Servant was a skeletal ghost that isn't strong, but can mean trouble in large numbers. From this one line of text, the evolution of this card was already explained. Support would be created to help get the monster stronger and stronger when more of itself are around. So, the way the new cards work is you want to dump as many Skull Servants in the grave as possible, which is made easier by other monsters in the series treating themselves as Skull Servant while in the grave. After that, the game plan is pretty simple. Summon King of the Skull Servants, or all 3 of them if you really want to. Each one will gain 1,000 attack for each Skull Servant in the grave, and now, with your huge monsters, you can just wail on the opponents. But the question then becomes, who else makes up the Skull Servant family? Well, first of all, we have the original Skull Servant. In the Toei manga, this monster was actually a level 2 monster and wore a green cloak. When the Konami version released, it was changed to having a level of 1 and a new purple cloak. However, they also decided to make this palette-swapped version of it too. This monster would be called the Wandering Doom. Now, while the artworks mirror each other and they can be thought of as pretty much the same card, this monster is technically twice as strong with double the level. Skull Servant itself left quite the legacy, due to its meme status and popularity. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Guide that usually delves into card lore goes very fourth wall in its description, talking more about its rise in popularity in the actual card game than its backstory. I call this tale the Rise of Skull Servant. A peculiar and beloved figure named Skull Servant emerged from the cheers and encouragement of countless fans. His unique design and quirky personality had captured the hearts of many, making him popular among players. One day, a surprising discovery was made. A lookalike appeared in the graveyard, known as the Wandering Doomed. The resemblance between the two sparked discussions in the WIGHT community, with some even referring to them together as 2 peas in a pod. Not everyone was thrilled by Skull Servant's fame, however. The Lady in White, a superstar in the white community, was reportedly quite displeased with being mistaken for him while napping in her grave. Another newcomer, White Mare, seemed to enjoy drinking tea, but always appeared sad due to the beverage leaking out a crack in his cup. More and more would be added to the family of Whites, and as their numbers grew, and amidst his own growing popularity, Skull Servant aspired to become a leader among his fellow Whites. He began to exude a kingly air when surrounded by others, and his followers could often hear him mutter under his breath,
"That's what I'll be one of these days."
As Mr. Skull Servant's popularity soared, he began appearing in various other cards. This would become a game for his fans, a kind of, can you spot me in your favourite cards? With the continued support of his fans, he dreamed of becoming even more powerful and iconic. It is clear Skull Servant's journey is far from over. Which you can look at as two ways. One, he'll probably get more support at some point in the future, which, to be fair, he does get some every now and then. And two, there is actually a little bit of a storyline in the background of some artworks he appears in. The most notable one is him and his family going on holiday together, which we can see in the artworks of There Can Be Only One and Quarantine. Other cards that Skull Servant has been seen inside are Anti, Dark Eruption, Ghost Salvage, Graceful Revival, Monster Reborn, Panic Burial, Pride of the Weak, Quarantine, Reject Reborn, Self-Mummification, Spirit Caller, Spirit Shackles, Terrible Deal, Try White, There Can Be Only One, and Zombie Master. Now, Skull Servant actually has two vanilla fused forms from long time ago. When fused with Battle Warrior, it makes Zombie Warrior. When fused with Dissolve Rock, it makes Flame Ghost. They're nothing to do with the modern support, it's just kind of interesting that these things exist. Now, this monster has an upgraded form, King of the Skull Servants, known in the Japanese as White King. The original attack of this card is the combined number of King of the Skull Servants and Skull Servants in your grave times 1000. When this card is destroyed by a battle and sent to the grave, you can banish one other King of the Skull Servants or one Skull Servant in your grave to special summon this card. Yes, you'll notice in this monster's artwork, it is standing upon the corpses of its own self. A nice reference to how this effect works. And there's also an implication that there might be multiple Skull Servants, so perhaps the Skull Servant is the one to rise up above the rest or something like that. But we're not done. Apparently to Konami, if a pun with a monster's name can be made, no matter how silly it is, they'll make it. And so that is how White King would receive an alternate version known as White Bake King. White King, White Bake King. Its effect is this card's name becomes Skull Servant while in the graveyard. If a level 3 or lower zombie monster you control would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can discard this card instead. If this card is sent to the grave, you can add 2 monsters with different names from your deck to your hand, except White Baking that are either Skull Servant or mention it. Then discard 1 card. Notice, by the way, that this monster is doing the same pose as the King of the Skull Servants, except, of course, he's holding some sweet potatoes. Why sweet potatoes specifically? Well, this kind of treat usually pops up around Halloween time in Japan, and is traditionally made by burning a pile of fallen leaves for the potato to be cooked in. And fun fact, by the way, I actually found this. Yes, that is a sweet potato flavored Halloween Kit Kat that they have in Japan. I know they've got Kit Kats for everything in Japan. I'd like to try some. I'm curious what this would taste like. But sweet potato flavored. I like sweet potatoes, but still. Now, after these 3 cards, the rest of the series begins to adopt the Japanese name of White, rather than continuing with the Skull Servant name. Now, all of these cards share an archetypal ability together, which is that while they're in the graveyard, they are treated as Skull Servants. So just assume that for the rest of the cards. However, we'll go over their unique effects. First up, we have the Lady in White, known in the Japanese as Lady White. Its unique effect is face up level 3 or lower zombie monsters on the field, except the Lady in White cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, they are unaffected by spell and trap cards and effects. This monster's name is a play on the legend of the Lady in White, a spooky ghost lady that is usually seen all in white and a little bit creepy, but it is Halloween time. Before somebody is about to die, it is said that if you took a photo of someone, you would see the Lady of White in the background, and that's how you know you're about to. So Spooky reference. Now, it seems to be implied that the Lady in White and King of the Skull Servants might be a couple, and they have 1 or 2 spooky children. The first is White Prince. Its unique effect is if this card is sent to the grave, you can send 1 Skull Servant and 1 Lady in White from your hand or deck to the grave. You can banish 2 Skull Servants and this card from your grave, special summon 1 King of the Skull Servants from your deck. Now we know this one is probably their son because it appears in a bunch of different artworks where they're all together. However, White Princess, it is unclear if she's also the daughter of these two, because she does appear in the manner that they all live in together, and she also does have the same pets as them. However, in the quarantine, and there can be only 1 artwork, she doesn't seem to be traveling on holiday with them. I don't know, it depends maybe when these cards all came out. That might be like a timeline thing. The card might not have existed back then, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm just gonna say she is. She just doesn't like to go on holiday maybe. White Princess. Its unique effect is if this card is normal or special summoned, you can send White Prince from your deck to the grave. During either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard. All monsters currently on the field lose attack and defense equal to their own levels and ranks times 300 until the end of this turn. And it's at this point I'd like to point out that we have 2 honorary mentions for this series of cards. These are the spooky pets that they have, which one is Skulldog Maron and the other one is Bone Mouse. So these appear in the artwork, so they're kind of a part of the archetype, but not really. White Lord. Its unique effect is if you have Skull Servant or King of the Skull Servants in your grave, you can send this card from your hand or field to the grave, send cards from the top of your deck to the grave up to the number of Skull Servants and King of the Skull Servants in your grave. You can banish this card from your grave, target 1 Skull Servant or King of the Skull Servants in your grave, special summon it. Oh, take a shot every time I said Skull Servant then. Woof. Like Lady in White, this monster's name, White Lord, is a play on Light Lord, making it a reference to the Lightsworn archetype. This is cemented by the fact that its effect mills just like the archetypal ability of the Lightsworn monsters, but more on the nose. This monster wears the armor of Jane Lightsworn Paladin, while Skulldog Maron in the artwork wears the armor of Raiko the Lightsworn Hunter. White Mare. Its unique effect is you can discard this card, activate one of the following effects. Target one of your banished Skull Servant or White Mares, return it to the grave. Target one of your banished Lady in White or King of the Skull Servants, special summon it. Everybody has to have a little reference in their name. White Mare, it's a play on Nightmare. Another card like this that is as close to being a part of the series as possible is a card called Tri-White, which is a play on Twilight. But this card has the ability to target 3 level 2 normal monsters in the graveyard, special summon them. And with that is the Skull Servant series of cards done. Want to watch some other spooky stuff? Well, I have a video right here and another spooky video right here. Thank you all for watching. Catch you later.